And the 1AC is an interruption of this. We refuse to debate the traditional topic and treat the judge as a hypothetical policymaker. Instead, they promote an education where they have linguistic reciprocity and our concerns are heard despite the resolution. 1AC is an act of intellectual courage. This starts in 11. Reciprocity requires an audience to understand speakers' words and understand the speaker, what they're doing with the word speaker, not forcing them to hear them. Their audience will demand reciprocity, essential linguistic change, as personal knowledge, reviews, audience, reciprocating linguistic change owing to ignorance that harms another. Methodological analysis that require intention, quieting others when an audience fails to identify speakers who are liability to the active practice of knowing and understanding certain groups, bringing stereotypes, restricting the ability, uncontroversial personality, and identify as knowledge and facilitate reliability, it's hard to be intellectual courage, specialized intellectual traditions. Speakers perceive when an audience is unwilling to gain the appropriate uptake of testimony, smothering and truncating one testimony to ensure the testimony contains only content one audience demonstrate testimony competence. This is coarse, silencing testimonies omitted with its unsafe and negative effects. And plus, we promote the affirmative model of disability, which is a cryptoepistemology about affirming disability as a positive and a negative, affirming different situations in society, redefining the self and embracing difference. This is a way for students to start to feel less embarrassed, self-affirming, and self-valued in the debate space. This is Cameron at 11. Affirmative model non-judgment to disability to encompass positive social identity, both individual and collective, and impairment can be experienced as valuable. There can be a negative experience, but this is not all impairment. Is an affirmative to be a model about being and thinking differently about being different. Affirmative models a unique way of being situated, so they feel challenging and ups in their own terms, way about being embraced differences. Models that celebrate difference. In terms of disability can be the benefits of being oppressed. Impairment is not necessarily a problem for people. The parents more a problem on those disabilities more than just what people are going to do for the being is what they are required to do to be instead. Discipline power requires people and parents to experience with body and negatively. The model is allows us to make sense of what happens everyday interaction with people and parents required to experience themselves sufficient. Smile can be a tool for survival. And thus, students should redefine themselves to escape the structural violence and experience for things such as a good bad spirit economy. Redefine the self and share our narratives is important in developing nuanced intellectual narratives for ourselves and allows students to create a new subjectivity both in everyday lives and debate. However, once our intellectual narratives created, they must now continually work on sustaining able society. This is why the 1AC cannot be boiled down to one story of policymaker or very topical version. This is Thomas 99. Through narrative, we come to make sense of the world and every case of social identities, all becoming who we are, being located on ourselves, and social narratives really our own decision making, ontological narrative stories, social acting, and other lives, using to define who we are, condition, what we talk about narratives, producing the interaction with subject and intersect with social narratives, zones to self by changing identity, feeling lost selves, reconstructing the self, play out theory against public narratives of normality, changing life, altering self, and acceptance, being closer to an impaired body of the person when she comes to all of her ontological narratives were shattered, due to reconstruct her self identity. I affirm my own views. Many single people feel the negative way outside of notion of appearance with wound deeply disability, Irish links to ontological narratives, including valid public narratives, meta narratives concerning gender and disability. I benefit from talking about my experience and listening to theirs. I wasn't on my own reconstructing ontological narratives built through assessing narratives about disability, impairment, and narratives disabled people campaign, disabled individuals, suffering from ontological narratives that have to continue to work that to be seen on the face of dominating disabled social narratives. And but what I see is an act of love and courage for education, this promotion of self-discovery and redefinition of the self in their own terms. Education is neutral, is something that must always be worked out and improved. This is why we have to highlight violence in the debate space and challenge in Peters 99. Education is an act of love and courage, but not prevented for journalism love that disrespect for student capabilities and guilty love based on receiving and qualities and capabilities and armed love that promotes self-discovery. Education is not neutral. The process of becoming disabled is back to political acts and content. One teaches not how to think through teaching content, nor can teach content by itself. Literacy, language comprehension, and communication, and self-about decision-making, subject matter content derived from the language usage to describe a person considered disabled. Education, dialogical initiated from a student's worldview. Their dialogue person becomes consciously aware of their content, and becomes politicized. Education is dialectical relationship between reflection, action, and praxis. And Taylor demands to be nothing about Spoonies. Without them, she won't be left behind. The legal body is how it's best for her debate space make Spoonies feel ashamed. We can't let debate continue without an injection of critical epistemology. Inspiration 14. We'll decide about other people in other places. Right now, I'm not okay with being left behind because our bodies not in some future state of pressure and pre-existence. Is not now. The one thing we have to measure or control over is now, so don't leave us out. And Taylor is done having to always get out of the way in debate. This time, she refuses. Law School 314. Chuck lived his whole life walking straight to people, expecting them to move. I had enough. Why am I always moving out of this guy's way? I was done playing by his rules, and I didn't move. He was furious. When you're questioning privilege, equality feels like a pressure. Let's say you're from people screaming all lives matter, boil down to people expecting them to move. When those people start believing that they have every bit as much right as the islands and anyone else, can see that the rights are being taken away. Equality can feel like oppression, but it's not. You're feeling discomfort of losing a little bit of your privilege. They're angry about having to consider others might be going towards them, exactly the right to exist. People rightfully angry about always having to move or asking, what if I just keep going? People who view the world differently can get along when they're open to change. There's hope. Ready for process.
All right. You good? Mm-hmm. All right. What is the 1AC's conception of disability?
Like what's the definition?
Yeah.
Okay, so basically our Cameron card talks about how impairments are the physical, mental, cognitive, and intellectual differences between people that actually let me just pull it up. Yeah, It's defined as a physical, sensory, emotional, and cognitive difference to be expected and respected on its own terms in a diverse society. Disabilities are a personal and social role which simultaneously invalidates the subject's position of people with impairments and validates the subject's positions as those identified as normal. So the impairments are the actual, like, things that are different about people, and then disability says that those things are wrong. They are socially constructed, and the impairments are disabled by society.
Okay. So what is your relationship to the topic?
We say that we are, we talk about military presence in the sense that it is a communal, individual, and corporeal level of violence, and then on top of that, we say that, like, we refuse to debate, like, the traditional topic, because this is a pause from debate. This is something that's much more important to talk about the violences that happen within the debate community, the NDT CEDA debate community.
Okay. You talk about, there's one of the tags that I wanted to talk about specifically. Sorry, I'm just grabbing it back. So you say that the relationship to violence is important to discuss. How would you characterize the relationship to violence?
Like, part of that is, like, we need to discuss, like, how debate commits violence against people and how, or against people with disabilities, and then how people with disabilities are, how they are experiencing violence.
So do you think this is the most important debate for us to be having right now?
I mean, opening up the debate space for these kind of conversations is absolutely the most important conversation we need to have.
Okay, all right. And, sorry, why do you say that the app is a prereq? Is it because of just, like, the opening up space, like, the...
I mean, because our Peters and Thompson cards talk about how, like, in order to talk about in order to actually do something or know what to do, or you have to be able to talk about disability in a certain kind of way. You have to have discourses of disability. You have to incorporate critical epistemology. You have to be able to redefine the self on your own terms and create those ontological narratives that allow you to define yourself and be able to give the narrative of yourself, and have those counter narratives in order to figure out what to do about something and for decision making and policy making.
So how do you change the debate space? Like, how does the 1AC change the debate space?
If you want to take prep, I can answer that, but
is it?
yeah, that's fine. Oh, sorry.
So, yeah, the order is going to be 2 off. One of them is going to be on paper, and the second one is going to be would you like to use our stamp?
There's a lot of paper happening right now.
Okay. Your choice. It's right here if you'd like.
Which is by which I meant.
Am I using that, or
if you want to use the stand?
I will use the stand.
Sure.
I meant, like, I tried to organize a lot of paper on top of the tub, which is usually where we speak from.
That's fine. Doesn't matter.
So 2 in case. No case.
So sorry. Say that again.
Off.
Just 2 off.
Just 2 off.
Did you email anything out, or?
There should be something emailed out, yeah.
Okay.
So you're on the email list? Can you tailor A?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I just didn't look at the email yet, so.
I'm going to take mine. It's very hot.
Wait, that's a little warm to be wearing a sweater
For me.
and getting all hyped and stuff.
I feel that.
Okay. Everybody ready?
Yep.
Okay.
The affirmative theory of violence mystifies the grammar of suffering of redness and blackness, which you identify as evils is in fact the foundational logic of genocide and slavery. There's only one ethical command, and your method of analysis recuperates the structural antagonism that maintains the world's willous in its hand. The grammar of their suffering, the only ethical grammars available to modern politics, they draw our attention to the violence that are direct the modern world's capacity to think, act, and exist, violent to rob their body, and him of his land provided the stage upon which other dramas could be enacted, not demanding to be a participant in an unethical, never going to introduce in the world itself was unethical, return to remind the staff, prepare the demolished, subjectivity to stage, two simple sentences will structure the U.S. and global entitlement would be dismantled from there. We can busy ourselves with more confidence and go to the level of attacking the question that go to the heart of political ontology are unspeakable. They become themselves impossible to imagine radicals progressives to reject struggle mercilessly, but they could not make a convincing case by paramount analysis that the U.S. with ethical formation still hope to maintain credibility as radicals and progressives. The raw force of COINTELPRO put an end to this trajectory toward possible hegemony and ethical accountability. Gone are intellectual protocols requiring unmapped revolutionary polemic, but this and Brandon's manifest only as unspoken grammar, so the script flavors from the spectator to a massive social turmoil with rubric of conflict as opposed to antagonism and resolutions, which is the obliteration of one of the position strategies often disrupted coherence by building the irreconcilable question of red and black political ontology. The grammar of antagonism embraces the mendacity of conflict. Political discourse assumes an ontological grammar, a structure of suffering, and the structure of suffering political discourse assumes crowds out other structures of suffering. Structures of ontological suffering stand in antagonistic rather than conflictual relation to one another. Radical fringe of political discourse amounts to little more than a passionate dream of civil reform results stability. This state of affairs exacerbates the ontological death of the slave and the savage because political discourse is accountable to the ethics. It becomes unauthorized by the demands of indigenous and black, and society has recuperated its stability. And you might claim to agree with us, but Google isolates three specific links to your theory of violence obfuscates the grammar of suffering that maintains the world. The first is colonialism. Your discussion of ableism forecloses the genocidal clearing at the heart of modernity. The model of power they cohered the white conquering subject at the root of civil society and the imperial ethos. They have not discussed the stolen land on which we stand. Madonna Torres VII. The project of colonizing America became a model of power, the very base of modern identity. This modern power is the heart of modern modernity without be possible without coloniality. Coloniality continues to be an inevitable counter of modern discourse. The coloniality power emerged about whether Indians had souls or not was born with an ideal of subjectivity that could be defined as ego can cure the certainty of the self to conquer, proceeded to self of thinking substance, bits and profit substance is like a worm at the very heart of modernity. The achievements of the ego, cogito and instrumental rationality operate within the logic. That is why progress always meant progress for the few and rights not apply equally to all. Misanthropic acceptance and provide the basis for preferential option for ego can cure, which explains the security for some you can seemingly be obtained by the expense of lives of others. The imperial attitude which promotes fundamental genocidal attitudes with respect to colonize and racialize people through it. The colonized and racial subject are marked as dispensable. The ideas of war, conquest, and genocide here bring up another fundamental aspect of coloniality. The discovery and conquest of America was an ontological and with many implications which were established by attitudes that had emerged in the context of conquest had already established a particular way of religion. People they encountered from the land already includes the acceptable care that ethics once taken in the New World. The non-ethics includes the practice of eliminating and enslaving certain subjects, e.g. indigenous and black. The hyperbolic expression of coloniality, genocide which led with approximately the ego cogito, and a world in which the ego cogito exists alone. War includes the particular treatment of sexuality, femininity. Coloniality is not the order of things that puts people of color into the murderers, rapists, society, religion, ego. And second is structural sequencing. Your failure to replace anti-blackness at the center of your analysis reduces the ethical demand of suffering to a supplement, which reduces fundamental logics of black activity that connect gratuitous violence home to imperialism abroad. Secondly, six. Critics assert a link between Alpha-driven anti-blackness and fundamental lines to exploit the linkages, willing to bring the critique of U.S. imperialism black. We find the mobilization that easy and distinct metaphors of black experience is neither incidental nor optimal. The imposition of terms is mandatory, despite insertion into chains of the will to be references to blacks function to supplement to all their gestures of comparison. As productions of slavery's afterlife lynching should be understood as elements of the evolution of social control. How is opposition to U.S. imperialism to produce in such a way that does not authorize the alienation of the most related black demands of the profound certainty continuity of black captivity across the entire history of America, of the United States, indicates not its utility, but rather its access in relation to the shifting winds of political expedience, the status of free political condition, which was violence is the very order of the political. This warfare is foundational and constituted the primary division of humanity and enabled launch of the syntax of Western Mediterranean, the promise of civil society, the seen underside of the most intimate possession of lawful existence, the peacetime soul finds the most compelling rationalization, the persistence of domestic backed population, the front line of this racist carceral regime, and our alternatives to reject the act and the orientation towards the end of the world. This has to be from its ethical demand and grammar, suffering, colonialism, and slavery. This is Wilderson and Tin. Anti-blackness is the genome of this horticultural template for human renewal, given the structural violence it takes to reproduce violence and the structure of black life. What is to be done? What is moving hollow? Fanon urged his readers to start an end to the world. The only thing worth the effort of starting that shift from horticulture to pyrotechnics rather than mind restoration of the organized dreams to include often called pray to, but not dreams of undoing, however plausible for its own sake. I know better than to offer a roadmap to freedom so extensive it would free us from the epistemic air that we breathe. And theory is key. Your theory of power produces the violent play up to the replicating symbolisms of the the state with freedom and can. The state is in many ways a conceptual term that refers to a mind-boggling array of relations of power. The state is real, but so massively expressed that it simply cannot be understood and seen in its totality. Storytelling through representation and saturation assembles the common sense of domestic warfare. This process of reproducing the state has an active structure of power through concrete mobilization of the capacity of statecraft, a series of active political and institutional projects. We are underestimating the skill and reach of states of pedagogical apparatus replete with room for contradiction and relatively sanctioned basis for dissent, nurturing a ideological and structural allegiance to the state that preempts a more creative, radical abolitionist politics. These symbiotic relationship with the state amount to a more sophisticated technology of political repression and social control, facilitating the ideological mobilization of domestic war in the state. Regulating with progressive organizations immediately forfeit the crucial political and conceptual possibilities of abolishing domestic warfare is direct reflection of the extent to which domestic warfare is a factor to everyday global reality of the state. Progressive organizations must reflect on how they might actually be reproducing existing forms of white supremacy, in the process throwing the resources behind winnable victories, one political move long overdue to restore the grassroots pedagogy of racial dissemination with the state that reorients a progressive identification with the creative possibilities of insurgency and politics that pushes beyond the defensive maneuvering of resistance. And next off this framework. A is the interpretation. The 1AC must have a firm advocacy that defends an interpretation of the resolution. This doesn't preclude further analysis of the debate space, but merely requires the 1AC to address a topic area. B is the violation. This is a cross-ex. They do not defend an interpretation of the resolution, instead offering a criticism of the revolution. Hold them to what they said in cross-ex. They don't get to meet. C are the standards. First, limits. Arbitrary interpretations are inevitable and good. We must enforce interpretations grounded in the community to allow for activism. Raymaker in 1. The important thing about every system of morals is that tyranny of arbitrary law of the creative act does not absolute freedom, subordination to what is at least appears to be arbitrary. Everything of the nature of freedom has only developed by means of tyranny of such arbitrary law. This narrowing of perspective is for Nietzsche a condition of life and growth. Subordination to the rules of system of morality should not be understood as a form of restriction. On the contrary, it is the necessary determination and limitation of conditions under which anything can be conceived as possible. Only from within a particular and arbitrary framework can freedom itself be interpreted as freedom. Nietzsche points to the necessity of being embedded within a particular cultural historical frame. Criticizing the system of morals inevitably means judging from a particular point of view. And second is purposelessness. We shouldn't ascribe its helos to debate. It doesn't change anything in the real world, and all the education can be gained from reading. The value of debate is the aesthetics of the struggle. Lane 96. Sisyphus is the absurd hero whose passion for life. His passion for life that won him unspeakable penalty in which the whole being is exerted towards accomplishing nothing. Sisyphus is conscious of his plight. Therein lies the tragedy. If he nourished the hope that he would yet succeed, then his labor would lose its torment. In this, it is recognition destiny that transforms his torment into victory. Sisyphus seeks desire, facilitated and negates the gods, and raises rocks. Each atom of that stone forms a world. The struggle itself is enough to fill a man's heart. It matters little for what reason they continue to struggle so long as they do, to testify man allegiance to man and not to absolute. D is the voter. You destroy debate by assigning it a role. That's bad and destroys the beauty of debate. Go back to the cave. Only the alternative can solve. These struggles are structural. Only complete disorder with the world can break the triad of genocide and slavery that upholds the colonial being of imperialism. Tucking in 12. Incommensurability is acknowledged that the decolonization will require a change in the order of the world, breaking the settler colonial triad, these repatriated lands and native tribes, the abolition of slavery, the dismantling of the imperial metropole. Decolonization here is intimately connected to anti-imperialism elsewhere. Decolonial struggles here, they are not parallel. Decolonization is not equivocal to other anti-colonial strategies. It is incommensurable. Settler colonialism fuels imperialism from around the globe. Settler sovereignty over these very pieces of earth is what makes possible these imperialists. Indian country was a term used in Vietnam, Afghanistan, Iraq by the U.S. military for enemy territory. Geronimo was the code name for bin Laden. The technology that permanent settler reserved for foreign wars. And only radical critique assesses any black and colonial resistance that exposes empire from below. Section 6. There is organic anti-Americanism from below, rooted in the resistance to revolt of slaves and the staunch military opposition of indigenous peoples. The limits of society in the United States, increasingly based on global scale as well, are established by profoundity of one's critique and by willingness to uphold the final instance of plaintiff of the pledge of allegiance. The profile of anti-American serves to regulate the limits of dissent. The politics of respectability is turned with a vengeance. The recurring line of this. There we go. Look at it. Yeah. And this runs marked right there.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Ready for cross-ex?
I guess, yeah.
Okay. Sure. So, what is the? Can you explain the on the topicality? What exactly is like? Did you talk about like?
What's the T version of the F?
Yeah. Like, what's the T version of the F?
Okay. So the topical version of the app would be your app plus an interpretation of the resolution. So we think that the most damning thing that you've done so far in this round is your cross-ex question of what is your relationship to the topic. When you say that we reject the topic holistically, you violate an important debate norm, which makes which like
Okay.
does all of the things.
So
that
what is an
we show.
interpretation of the resolution? Because we have said that we are a prerequisite. We've also said we remove military presence. So what exactly is missing in the first speech that you are saying we need to do for the interpretation?
I'm saying that you need to be like, hey, this is what the resolution means. We affirm that. You said.
What if that's
this is what the
violent?
resolution means. We don't like that.
What if that is violent?
We have responses to that being violent. We also think that there is like a topical version of the app which doesn't require
What's the
violence.
topical
You can be like,
version?
What's the
yeah,
what is
okay.
that?
So you do this, and then you're like, also like a discussion of how ableism operates, for example, in military presence in Iraq. There's a whole bunch of different versions of that. We just need you to say like something about one of the topic areas.
Have you watched Ground, or what's the reason why this is a? Because you say it destroys the beauty of debate.
Okay, so there's two reasons. The first one is the Rainmaker 1 evidence, which says that arbitrary interpretations are both inevitable and good.
So you're saying that this is arbitrary? Our interpretation is just arbitrary.
Yes.
Okay, and what is the beauty of debate?
Okay, so the 1996 evidence talks specifically about Sisyphus and about struggle. We view debate as something which is always a struggle, and something which is always difficult, always hard, and which is always fundamentally meaningless.
Okay.
And we view your attempts to assign a telos to debate. You're saying like giving a point to debate is really problematic.
Okay.
Because all of the possible points can be achieved somehow else.
Okay.
And the really beautiful thing is this.
Okay.
All right. Next question. So on the off case, what exactly can you articulate the alternative?
The end of the world.
Okay. Can you explain a little
It's
bit
a
more
reorientation.
what it looks like? What does the world look like?
Okay.
Negative.
The
What is
wilderness evidence that we read on that piece there is really specific. That we don't have to describe what the world looks like after the end of the world, because pretty clearly the world is over. We're calling for the end of everything which is known, the end of everything which can be known.
And then
that
what
means we can't offer
are
the
the
description.
what are the
That's
links to
exactly
the
what
case?
we need.
What are the links to the case?
The links to the case, Linda?
You got, okay, so the first link you read is the colonialism link, that's the Maldonado Torres link. And the second link that you read is the Sexton link, which is the gratuitous.
But what do these
violence
mean?
and
Like, what are the
anti-black
links? Like,
You want me to like talk about the links?
just like, how does it link?
Okay, so the colonialism link basically talks about the ways in which like colonialism is a foundational antagonism. Basically, what the whole case is about antagonism.
Okay. You want me to just tell me just ask this last one?
Yeah. Prep real quick. Do y'all defend social death or not?
What do you mean?
Like, do you think that are you claiming that like people of color have are socially dead? I just need to.
That's the will and support that goes into those cards.
So yes.
We didn't claim that in our one.
But do you defend?
Right. Do you defend that so I can like answer you?
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
You do? Okay.
Continue, Prep.
All right. So fatalism or something?
What? Natal alienation?
Oh, don't worry about it.
Talk about that.
Never mind. Don't worry about it. It's all good.
I think that was thinking out. I think that was thinking out loud.
Yeah. Sorry.
But thank you.
I'm gonna really need you to keep me on time. Social death.
Are you also taking prep?
Yeah. Sorry.
Okay. I saw the
Social death.
It's all good.
There we go. Yep. Oh, no. Yep. All right, stop prep. 388 or 338, not 388. That makes no sense.
I don't know how this thing works on his.
It's okay. We'll just tell him. It's all good.
You have yourself using 338?
No, 838 left.
Oh, okay.
Brain.
Why is there one expo marker for this blackboard?
Okay.
Okay.
I try not to question things too much.
So like, I feel like this.
It's okay.
But I want to figure it out.
I choose to believe the exact same thing.
Do I hit
No, I
delete?
actually have 0 chest there.
But yeah, I'm just gonna need you to help me, like,
I
yeah.
don't know if that's weird or
I wasn't able to figure it out. We have
838 left.
Oh, uh-oh.
I love Verbatim's timer setting. It's the best.
Yeah, it's pretty nice. Mine doesn't work
Set-
anymore.
Wait, where's the stand?
Sorry?
Also, why is there top of?
I have the top on.
Oh, I was like, what? This is ours.
Oh!
Oh, I just like bashed your computer. I'm so sorry. Oh.
One of them's broken, so just like, yeah.
I mean, one of them's broken.
One of the sides is chips that you're not going to have full coverage.
Where?
Just don't worry about it.
What?
Don't worry about it.
Oh,
Don't worry about it.
alright. Alright. I did not break it.
Nor did I.
I can flash around the microphone. Whatever. Wait, what's wrong? What?
What?
Why are the legs weird?
Because you're on a piece of paper?
No, like the legs are weird.
It's this one. No, so these two.
Okay.
Stand.
I don't know. It looks weird. That's okay.
That plays that. Extend that leg a little bit. You're going on 2 legs. No, far
What?
left. That one's not touching the.
Oh. Alright, whatever. I just won't hit it.
What's the word?
We're gonna go case K framework. Or yeah, no. I'm gonna go case T framework K.
Should we float a T on a separate sheet of paper?
What
Or
do
is
you?
the T at the top of the framework stuff?
Oh, T framework, whatever.
Yeah.
It's all-
Like it's the same thing.
Another one.
There's
Another one.
Are you reading an intro?
Where's the thingy? The thingy.
More specific.
The document. There we go. Okay. Couldn't find it. Okay. So yeah, cool. Alright, when everybody's ready?
I'm sorry, it's mine's still up.
You're good.
Okay.
Alright, ready? Are you ready? Judge ready? Vote act to endorse the affirmative model of disability, which is lifestyle being that's both positive and negative, being and thinking differently about being different. Affirm disability as a tool for surviving and debate. The app is a way for spoonies to exist. In Spoonville, I'm scripted as bad spoonie or worthless, pitiful monstrosity. I make debate bad because I refuse the topic. I can redefine myself as a spoonie who is creative, embrace their disability, and refuse to be a good spoonie, etc. There's no role in the balance to vote for the team that endorses the best model to challenge the able normativity and debate. Every balance is endorsement of the kind of conversation we need to start having about the debate space. We challenge the balances by rupturing communication barriers, by positive debate, by promoting a path or a form of education that allows for testimonial and narrative sharing. This is the moment to call a debate out on its bullshit without having to be afraid. We don't have to get out of the way anymore. The app is about keeping people in debate and prevent the continuation of hate, violence, and debate. The app is exposed the unique question debate back now. Instead of race 14, nothing about styles. It is must include criminal moments of debate and not engaging with the one I see at all is Lincoln in and of itself. They have not addressed the epistemology and the narrativity and the definition of the self in the debate space, which is key, and this is inherently violent because it brackets out people with disabilities in my own voice because they have not engaged with the app at all. And on to its framework. Framework makes the pain work. Our model of debate is one where we must talk about the violent marginalization of spoonies, the our impact outweighs because the real world and systematic bias is not hypothetical. The next talks about theoretical models. This is our real world existence. Perm do both other rounds solve. No cheaters to the app because process focus bad. Discuss about policy force. Counterplan is deprioritize the app. Shift the focus to able bodies. Distancing ableist violence is to institutions which doesn't count for individual violence. Plus, anti-war campaigns don't solve in our ableist. Doomstar 10. She became a fierce outgoing activist for change rebel. The traditional female roles who question the war. Her description of suffering grounded her activism shows disability and analyzing her stance to the negative necessitates theorizing patient relation to disability, relationship, apology, politics, reinforcing ableism by blaming war for her grief and pain and being more instructed through the experience, rise pain and disability, pervasive upholding, risk sentimentalizing women, upholding a body free of suffering and or disfigurement, and ignores the political and social importance of providing support for people with disability, and trying to set the conversation on the foreign countries, ignores the violence that happens in the basic. The cross apply Thomas and Peters here that the app is a prereq, talking about Spoonville Arena defining itself is a prereq to this kind of education, knowing what to do in decision making and policy making. Except race, we can't just isolate the conversation about other countries. Disability has to be a forefront of all conversations because it instructs their relation with the countries because spoonies live there too and are affected by your impacts too. Spoonies and spooners live everywhere. Home 5. Disability becomes not an alternative study. It becomes a part of our everyday existence, relevant to all our economic and social context. We do favor only select forms of existence. It is vital to understand critically, examine, and acknowledge other stories. Such as the curriculum, able body bodies, perpetuate various stereotypes. Students need to critically examine how the way the existing structures may affect individuals of various characteristics and experiences differently, and extend Peter's education to acts of love and courage and art to love that promotes self-discovery. But this education is not neutral because it is a political process. One cannot teach through only content because all decision-making action derives from the language people use to describe spoonies. Education is initiated from a student's worldview, which is political. It is also a dialectical relation that is continuous in development and reflection. And this is why education is the biggest impact in this on this flow of education outweighs, because this is the only way to figure out what to do about problems in other countries. We have to start at the communal, individual, and corporeal levels of violence before we go into the foreign levels. And we defend the point of stasis is debate fairness. Arguments are a joke, numerous structural inequalities in debate that not uniquely impact schools have more resources, time, people framing issue. They must win the ground and the limits. They lose this good ground. Most schools say that it isn't because it requires us to always get out of the way of framework and topic. Equality isn't oppression. You just think it is because you lose some of your privilege. Potential abuses and abuse. Deliberation fair, neutral ground is ableist. Clifford 12. Deliberative democracy is a bodily practice. Are unable to grapple with inequalities caused by bodily differences. Embodiment is disclosed because it usually signifies more corporeality. Groups causing treated with aversion while the privilege remains by embodiment. Deliberative recognizes all participants of bodies. Disembodiment promotes the language that is always clear and coherent. Language can be ambiguous, limited control of the meanings of the words and bodies conveyed. Embodied speech can promote active attentiveness and humility. Empirical that demonstrated the heterogeneous groups are more deliberative than homogeneous. Counterparts that provide a sense of the diverse bodies can confront false assumptions that raise new avenues of dialogue. Theorists have implicitly coding as deliberative settings of the able body. And reading the Kant frameworks of double turn and taking out the all the procedure bracketing out of our app method is soaked with conservative ideology, which meant to safeguard the squall. This is why they are forcing us to the K and framework double turn each other, because we have to defend some kind of other region or whatever. I'm talking about another region, but at the same time we have to talk about how the violence of the black body and also and colonialism and the fact that we are standing on a stolen ground, which is in the United States, that we either have to talk about another region or in the United States, and we can't do the same at the same time. And on the cave. None of the cards are specific to debate or to disability. That is already the all. We say that the U.S. is an ontological formation is bad. We take the same negative scripting on black and colonized bodies. Ableism operates as a master stroke, which is illuminating the fundamental tactic of oppression. The naturalization of social inferiority as biological difference. Cybers 9. Oppressive systematic victimization of one group by another always focuses on how the body appears, justified most often by natural inferiority, focusing on the mental and physical features as it disfigures disability. Is not a matter of reducing other minority identities to disability identity, rather understanding the working by disability as a oppressive system of physical mental properties, the socially constructed as disqualifying defects, and to roll the symbolic requirements of oppression in general of the opposed identity is represented in some way disabled racism, providing justification for the inferiority of certain skin colors, bloodlines, and physical features, ableism, slicing, and then stigmatizing disabilities as a disfigurement identity is socially constructed, representing sense of incompetence, weakness, or inferiority is undeniable facts in nature. As racism slowly falls away as justifications for inhuman inferiority. The prejudice against disability reigns in full force. Disability represents the final frontier of justifiable human inferiority. Affirming disability, all justice, all the out. None of our narrativity affirming disability, redefinition, self, or critiquing made descripting the diagnosis into justice challenge the way spoonies are described verbally, physically, and intellectually by the school. They said it's the doctor between describe me when they deny my words, when they don't identify me as nowhere. This is epistemic violence against spoonies. See what they can't perpetuate. We can't perpetuate the vicious cycle of being complicit with violence against spoonies. They all assume that we have a spoon's energy motivation to do something about the situation. All redefining the self-solves, except praise 14, head of 14. I rose my sick moment facility or most of the process are reported to sick people. Many might not be able to protest, but this emerges as all the other bodies with their fists raised up tucked away simply because they are not physically able to get the bodies on the streets. There is always one thing about the true public demonstration. The police are already there. They are coming. The inevitability of violence of the demonstration ensures people can't show up. They couple this with disabilities to keep people at home, and we must contend that many of whom protest for our not participating. They're unable to march. Hold up a sign. It's going to be a political being. How do you throw a big through a window if you can bank if you can't get out of bed? And just all that good, bad, spoonie, DA, except Smith. The next time it makes me either deal with the squall or vote neck like a good little spoonie. This perpetuates ableism, makes accessibility impossible, justifies eugenics, cures fakes, eliminates disability, permanently absent. The all anti-black and antagonists are not. I'm not gonna read that. Starting politics is the premise of social ethics, such as the colonial mindset is neutral and inevitable. It confines blackness forever into incapacity. They're not already dead. Walker 12. to argue there was more than social death, not to say subjectivity do not exist in slavery, but we're not the living dead, the mothers of a new grasping a new society to make it martyrs, manage cheaply, plantation to create a new model of living. This label of social death is a narrative position of the vantage point of the European ideology. Classification only have meaning relative to the symbolic representative of the blindness of whiteness against the black job, the bachelor of the slave, the concept of social death and the colonial narrative within the states. Slaves are confined to the one-dimensional story of terror. They negotiate their own identity, ideas about self and identity. We find value in studying murders not the manage the creating autonomous world outside of the hegemonic discourse with negating the balls of new modes of communication, which include a myriad of languages and energy of subjectivity, which restore the colonial paradigm socially dead. So, like, this energy subjectivity restores the colonial paradigm to the socially dead. That implies the creation of mutual recognition of the past of slavery. Okay, cut the card there. Permian, you do you, we do us, and tying identity to layers to reinforce the topography of power and centralized identity attached to the discrete territorial units repeating every logic of the nation state colonialism. Crypto Ferguson 92, the premise is discontinuing the starting with the theorized context, conflict, contradiction between society, the representation of the world, the collective of countries as seen as an inherently fragmented space is divided into diverse nations, so with each word of the proper place. From the space comes kind of neutral with the on which culture differs historical memory and social organization are scripted. This results in significant problems. The fiction of the cultures is discrete, occupying discrete becomes impossible for those who inhabit borderlands. And on cut the card there. Cases the all optimism and all solidarity only hoax 96. White supremacists taught that they can never trust between the white superior white and inferior black when black people internalize these sentiments no resistance to take place. We become complicit. Rather, white people are comfortable with the rhetoric that suggests racism cannot be changed. Thus, thinking white socialized white people to remain ignorant. White people of color and black folks are reluctant to commit themselves to a struggle because they are pervasive feeling of hopelessness. How can any of us hold these feelings of study of racism and history as see with shows make no sense?
Ready?
When you're
Okay. So why don't you address the Maldonado-Torres evidence, which specifically talks about the ontological death of indigenous peoples? It seems like all of your evidence is talking about black people.
I mean, like, when they're talking about the black, it's about, like, those who are blackened, right? They are also including, like, people who are blackened by society. Sorry?
So indigenous peoples are blackened?
I mean, Wilderson defends that, so if you're not going to, then there's a problem with your K.
Okay, cool beans. What's the role of the ballot?
The role of the ballot is, let me go back up. Role of the ballot is to vote for the team that endorses the best model to challenge the able normativity in debate.
Okay, and why is that used?
Because we challenge able normativity in debate through challenging the actual structures of the debate, challenging the violences in debate, challenging the epistemic violence that happens in debate, not refusing to debate the topic, having this to be a pause within debate and being able to have a conversation about what to do. And
better at, say, eliminating like racism in debate. Do you think that that's important?
Sorry?
Or does the role of the ballot exclude?
No, I'm sorry. Say that again.
Okay, so if we propose some sort of other, if voting for the Ned is better to like stop, Anglo-normativity in debate, is that like valuable at all, or does the ballot just not really care about that?
I mean, it's not that that's not valuable. I'm saying because, like, I can't start from the position of talking about the black body because I'm white, right? Like, if I had a 1AC that was talking about, like, oh, racism in debate, this is what we should do about it, that seems kind of really fucked up, that seems really messed up because I'm white and I don't get to have those kind of, I don't get to solve. That puts me at the forefront of a movement for the black body. So that's why the role of the ballot is about challenging able normativity in debate, because I can have that starting point as somebody who is disabled.
Okay, so you think that disability needs to be the forefront of all debate conversations, or just this debate conversation?
I mean, one of our cards says that disability needs to be at the forefront of all conversations because we are constantly being bracketed out, and that another one of our cards says that, like, as racism is starting to be more addressed and sexism is being addressed, as classism is being addressed, disability is still being ableism is still being justified and still happening to the disabled body. It is not being challenged enough.
Okay, can you show me one of your cards which talks about how disability is ontological?
Yeah. That would be, I mean, it's not the same as, like, when we say ontological, it's okay. Ontology. Well, it's talking about the ontological narrativity. That's the, which one is that? That's the Thomas card. It talks about how, like, ontological narratives. Yeah, that's the Thomas 99 card, the one I see.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, and it talks about how, like, Where is it? Disability and I were inextricably linked.
Okay, movies.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's see.
Yeah. Always a good idea.
Hey, can I double check your DAs with you? Is that cool?
Yeah.
You had the scripting DA
Yeah, let me go to the top. Hold on. On which one?
on the kit.
Yeah.
You did scripting DA, the good bad DA.
Oh, crap. Hold on. Let me get to it. I'm so sorry. Yeah, scripting, good, bad, DA, yep.
And was there another one?
Sequencing.
Sequencing. All right.
Really contextualize it. Really contextualize it. Like we could discuss I've-
336.
Same.
Which time is the fastest time?
Yeah.
I'm gonna go K. And I'm gonna do this if I get time.
We will see.
I would say there's yes. I was gonna say medium, but I realized that would not be true. That would be a lie.
Are there any cards that you're sending?
Yes,
Is that
it's all,
stamps?
no, it's all paper.
All paper? No, you're good. Just want to make sure if I need to check my email or not.
Sorry, I thought you just said, are there cards?
No, it's all good. After that.
Advanced speech.
There we go.
Yeah.
Did you put it here? Is that what you did?
That's what I did.
Okay. No, it's okay. I'm good. Thank you. Alright. Everybody good?
No new cards or just
Well,
paper?
Paper.
Gotcha. Picture.
Alright. The affirmative theory of power, mass, colonial, anti-blackness. Our argument is that what you identify as ableism is in fact a language that mystifies the grammar of suffering and founded the world on a structural antagonism of genocide and slavery. This fundamental ontology creates a landscape where American power resides and fuels its extension globally. The role of the judge is to vote for the team with the best theory of power relations. There is only one theory of violence that can provide an ethical demand that disrupts the entire edifice of modernity, return Turtle Island to the savage, repair the demolished subjectivity of the slave. Wilkerson says this is the only epistemic break from America that ensures a theoretical orientation for the end of the world. This end of the world orientation resolves the entirety of the neg, and I'll get to that more on the line by line, or resolves the entirety of the app. We'll get to that on the line by line. And the affirmative thinks they agree with us, but we will create a few top-level distinctions that prove they maintain the world. 1. This proves there's no offense. The end of the world is the only no-risk option that solves the app. We completely critique power relations and the formations that allow them to arise. Extend Section in the 6 for a sequencing argument that proves we are a prerequisite to the discussion of violence. The app is ethically bankrupt. Extend to Wilderson. The world is unethical. Only the end of the world will create the conditions for ethics to exist. Ontological structures come first. Extend Wilderson and Mandala Torres. America is structured by colonialism and anti-blackness. Only accounting for that exclusion prevents the continuation of its logic. And theory is key to ontology. What best understands its ontological structure is a theory of violence. Extend Rodriguez, Maldonado, Torres, Sexton, Lee, and Wilderson. Theory is key. Your epistemology creates a colonial pedagogy which should be rejected. Only the alternative can understand political ontology in a way that accounts for genocide and slavery. And epistemology determines frame. Extend Maldonado, Torres, and Rodriguez, and Wilderson. Here, your analysis brackets the political ontology of race, which means you naturalize everyday forms of violence, which turns your solvency. And now onto the link word. Extend our Maldonado Torres colonialism link. This is not a simple give back the land or stolen land argument. Your analysis leaves intact the ego concito fundamental to modernity. Sociopathy predates rationality. Before the thinking, there was the warrior self who questioned the very humanity of those they were dominating. This identity cohered the white male able subject as the center of those the Enlightenment and imperial ethos that encouraged countless genocide and slavery. This became its very model of power, an ontological structure that extended the non-ethics of war to daily existence. Your theory of violence leaves intact this core logic of submission at the heart of modern power, and your theory reifies the coloniality of power, the naturalization of racial and sexual violence as a fundamental aspect of modernity. Maldonado, Torres, and 7. Men of color are feminized and become fundamentally penetratable objects. The ego concito is constitutively a phallic ego now added to the forms of submission of the vanquished Indians, depicting consequence as an extension of the rape and exploitation of women in wartime. Once vanquished, they are said to be inherently servants of their bodies come to form, part of an economy of sexual exploitation. The ethics of the ego concito cease to be only a special code of behavior for periods of war and becoming in the Americas and gradually the modern world the idea of race, the coloniality of power, a way of those whose naturalization reaches its climax. Marked right there. I marked the card. And you ensure your erasure of indigeneity functions as a condition of possibility for the resultant empire that fuels wars globally. Burden 11. Indianness functions as a transit within empire. Such understands indigeneity as radical alterity. As a transit, Indianness becomes a site through which U.S. empire orients and replicates itself by transforming those to be colonized into Indians through continual reiterations of pioneer logics. In the wake of this transit, one finds competing representations of arrivals that vie for hegemony, bringing indigeneity front and center discussions of U.S. empires as it traversed across the Atlantic and Pacific world is a necessary intervention which through erasures and repetitions of Indianness, which one might see that stakes in decolonial justice tied to life, land, and breathability. Now, they read a card that talked about how tying identities to land is essentialist. They have multiple cards about this, and this argument that they make towards the end of the case flow, I'm going to answer it here because it's relevant to our link. This is absolutely not an essentializing argument about the ways in which indigeneity is tied to land. However, their refusal to acknowledge indigeneity at all, like in any capacity, goes down to the very basics of the world that we exist in being based upon coloniality. This is the same thing about when they talk about how we try to get them to articulate a link about how it was possible that about how disability is ontological during the cross-sex, and there was no ability to articulate that. They simply said that from day one there is a recognition, but they didn't articulate fully how this could be ontological, and ontology comes first. This is going to be an essential argument in this argument. This is going to be an essential argument in this debate. And extend the structural sequencing link. This is a sequencing argument. The structure of anti-black colonialism comes first. Sexton and Lisa, your analysis puts the cart before the horse. Your opposition to imperialism would have, not that part. When your app is completed, the peacetime assault will continue. You collude with the erasure of anti-black linkages to militarism that mobilizes fungible capital into forms of social control and global power projection. Your analysis on the perp reduces suffering into a chain of equivalences that reproduces slavery's afterlife. And the app is a form of hedging. Your theory is just a weak opposition which ignores the networks of power that perpetuate the political ontology of race fundamental to imperialism. 6 and Lee and 6. Black people have been deemed perennial threats to national security. Few more beyond concerns for reform for current practices. Differences not at the empirical level, but at the structural level, the political ontology of race. Political opposition to militarism cannot hope to mount viable criticism with effectively political intervention if it cannot subject radical critique the local police forces and the ancillary judicial institution with which they interact daily. Cut the card there. Sorry about that. And our alternative controls the direction of uniqueness. Civil society is rotten to the core. All of your impacts are inevitable when the world is allowed to continue. There's no offense to yield, only a risk that they reify the power relations that allow imperialism and gratuitous violence to be a prison regime to continue. That's where Wilderson and Rodriguez. Ontology comes first, extended to Wilderson cards. Ontology is structural antagonism that results in the endless manifestation of genocide and anti-black violence. Sexton and Lee say that this political ontology of security is the first cohered by a white supremacist subject that gains its life in a parasitic relationship to red and black death, and epistemology DA. Extend Rodriguez. Theory is key to ontology. Our alternative is a prerequisite to your analysis. Your epistemology creates flawed methods that naturalize state forms of violence, and your analysis forecloses radical approach that's Sexton and Lee. I'm going to go to the flow proper now. They say that we don't talk about disability or about the debate space specifically. Now, we don't talk about disability because we don't want to be speaking for others. There is a distinct place in which the 1AC talks about their own experiences, and we do not have those experiences. We are not going to speak for others. We are not speaking for black debaters in the debate space. What we are talking about is a reorientation based on scholarship about the end of the world. This is what we're going to be able to solve for all of their offense. This is the Muldonan Torres evidence that you can extend here, and they say that you can group their they talk about first of all, their 13th year, we're going to outweigh this because we're going to be able to solve for this through the ult, as I just talked about how the end of the world is going to be able to be an end to the same sort of to the structures that perpetuate the ableism within debate. They say that there's a good, bad, dissat, but this is the K doesn't demand the silence. That doesn't demand any lack of. It doesn't demand that we don't talk about ableism. It doesn't demand that we don't stop the debate space. It doesn't say that you cannot read this. It simply says that a better version of this would be to end the world, because this is a better orientation that comprehensively deals with as well the structural antagonism against red and black bodies. And then the sequencing DA, this doesn't apply because we are a reorientation. We're not saying that they can't talk about this, that they have to talk about any other, they have to run a plan. We're not going to tell them to do that. But this is, the sequencing DA isn't going to apply because we're a reorientation. So they say that starting with death accepts the colonial mindset, but that's not what we're talking about. The thing about social death and the way in which they're describing it is that we're forcing people to accept that they're socially dead. But the argument that's made within Wilderson is that there's the shifting of whiteness is constantly changing the ways in which it subjugates black bodies through anti-blackness. It's a constantly shifting methodology that always perpetuates anti-blackness throughout the ages, which is why the ontology has to come first. And then their perms, they say perm, you do us, we do us. Perms are not going to be able to solve in this case because we are a better version of the app. We're going to be able to solve for things that they can't. These perms alongside each other aren't going to be functional. You can't do a side-by-side perm like this with like a performance thing. It's not going to be able to be possible to do a perm do both. And they say that we're tying identities to land in the case is a DA to the alt. Even if the case is a DA to the alt, we would outweigh this with this DA because we're going to be able to solve for it. That's all I've been talking about with the alt solvency stuff. And extend the alternative. We should reject the app as an orientation toward the end of the world. This is not to say that we should invite death, but refuse the assumptions of humanism that dominate Western thought. Our Wilderson evidence says that there is no roadmap to freedom. Central to his use of Fanon is how the only effort worth starting is a project of disorder till the end of the world. Modernity is founded on the structural antagonism of genocidal global genocide.
Yep. Okay, so are y'all saying that I'm accepting humanism?
Why would you say that?
Because you said the alt is to refuse humanism, and I'm not doing the alt. So am I not refusing humanism or not?
We're saying that
one part of the alt.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's our method of refusing humanism.
Okay, so what does ending the world look like? What does that do for people with disabilities?
Okay, remember what we talked about in the first cross-ex when we said we can't describe what the end of the world looks like?
Okay, but I want to know what happens to me.
Like okay. So what the alt is about a reorientation towards end of the world thinking, right? So
also, it doesn't really matter because you're white.
True.
What do you mean it doesn't matter since I'm white?
Like that the end of the world is the end of white ontology.
So what does that look like? I'm not allowed to talk, or I die, or what happens?
I don't know.
We don't know. It's the reorientation that's key in this round. But if you're talking about like how does this affect,
then how do we know if it's going to solve for black and brown bodies?
I mean, that's what Wilderson is arguing.
Sure, but if you can't articulate the alt, then like how do we know it's going to solve for them just because one black guy said it will?
Wilderson can't articulate the alt either. Look at the specific alt card that you read. Wilderson has like a...
Okay, cool. What I'm asking you is how do you know it's going to solve just because one black guy said that it's going to?
Okay, because the world is terminally like bad.
Terminally unethical. That's
the only
argument
that
Wilderson can do is to get rid of the world.
Okay.
Whatever.
All right. So you said you won't speak for others, but you want me to center the conversation around black bodies. How is that not a link term? Or how are you not linking to your own argument or telling me that I have to do something that you refuse to do?
Okay, first of all, we've been talking about anti-blackness through the lens of this scholarship.
Sure.
Second of all, we didn't say that you can only talk about anti-blackness.
No, but you said I need to center the conversation around it.
Yeah.
So how am I?
That doesn't mean that you speak for others just because you speak about the ways that anti-blackness operates. Like, white people are highly implicated in anti-blackness.
Okay.
That's why we have to talk about it, because the alternative is white people doing nothing, which is the status quo.
Okay.
Also, you say that you're speaking for others. You're not actually speaking for others. You're using literature. So what? You're using scholarship. Are you saying that the affirmative is not using scholarship in the same method, or like what does that mean?
Oh no.
Like you're willing to speak for others as long as you use scholarship, but why don't you speak for the disabled body using the same scholarship you're using to speak for the black body?
We're not speaking for anyone who's just reading literature.
But you say that it's okay to speak for others if you're using scholarship.
Right. Why aren't you talking about? Yeah. Why aren't you talking about people with disabilities? You could talk about black people with disabilities. You could talk about indigenous.
Because that was
with
the only
disabilities.
reason you gave for not referencing the disabled body, because you're not going to speak for others. But it's okay to speak for others.
Well, what we were saying is like the reason we're not going to forefront an argument like what the 1AC does is because it's a personal narrative about
how is Wilderson's not a personal narrative?
He wrote his own book about his life.
I mean, yeah, but what we're dealing in here.
Okay.
Okay.
Shit. Isn't that interesting?
Good shit.
No, it's all on paper. Or sorry, not all on paper. It's all not on paper.
Oh, okay.
You can see the clear divide in our team.
That's okay. I did semi-paper once. That was awful.
I actually really like to be in paper most of the time.
I'm disorganized.
Yeah.
Like, this is my life, right? And these aren't even, like, this isn't even mine. It's in a pile.
By the way, I remember debating against you because your Gmail picture was the same.
The fat baby?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Everybody
remember.
loves the fat baby.
It must have been like last semester.
It's very distinctive. Judges remember it. Everybody remembers it.
I'm sure I will. I'm just always associated with the fat baby.
Oh my gosh.
Framework.
That's good though.
So same impression, stuff in the
Oh, we have a bunch of your stuff here. Yeah, we have a bunch of your stuff.
I would float straight down there.
Yeah, those two
I'm
things
just
I
thinking,
want.
there'll
Those two
be a
things
lot
you're
of
gonna
extensions
reference.
in the stuff.
Okay.
So you can float
Wait.
the extensions to the specific cards, but I'm kind of going down. It's basically what I said, what she said.
Wait. What?
So extensions and then answers.
Yeah.
Cool.
So wait, I'm sorry, where?
Framework.
So
Yeah.
just framework?
Yeah.
Okay. And then what did you say?
It's
I didn't hear you.
just floats down.
Okay.
Cool.
Sorry, I just didn't hear what you said.
Oh, okay, and then I'll do facing.
Okay.
Ready? Okay. The framework is a call for you to revise and resubmit your affirmative. Even if there isn't anything wrong with it on the substance level, we want you to change a couple of things to fit the rules of this form and then resubmit it. The interpretation is that the affirmative is a wrong starting point for the discussion. They can be a small part of the topic, but that doesn't necessarily make them topical. Our interpretation is that the affirmative must have a firm attitude that depends on interpretation of the resolution. We have an offensive definition of debate that's built on community norms. Our rainmakers evidence that these sorts of definitions and arbitrators are a tyranny that produces beauty and competitive struggle. The role of the ballot, therefore, is to affirm a beautiful struggle. Only the net can do that because we're the only team that's producing this beauty in terms of debate. We're the only team that establishes these arbitrary lines that are beautiful in debate. It's in the Rainmaker evidence. Arbitrary lines are good because within the community, within a balanced set of rules, we can create a more beautiful form of framework. There's more evidence here for Vodkins. Entering the symbolic register presupposed certain laws, or rather a prohibition, the inhibition of symbolic law, and something is to emerge. This also has to be accepted. The laws of language have to be recognized. When that's happened, the law has to be instituted. The agent of law is a signifier to disrupt the imaginary relation by erecting prohibition. The law introduces order and suiting human society, creating of meaning. What happens when the signifier in question, organizing symbol, the one insignificant conversion that it constitutes fails to appear? The lack of symbolic is covered by imaginary constructions. Psychosis is the signifier that is in question. The lack of one signifier necessarily brings the subject to the point of calling a set of signifiers into question. It is the foreclosure in the name of the Father and the place of the other that I designate to defect against psychosis' essential condition. It's essentially the lack of the symbolic other that explains psychotics as in the inability to create constructive metaphors. That's the first resentment DA to their interpretation. The second DA is the purposeless disad. Extend the lane 96 evidence. Affirming the affirmative with a neg valid is absurdity. The death of the 1AC and the neg valid is a tragedy that makes their plight meaningful because it forces us to relinquish dreams of a perfectly coherent model of debate that's fair and to find value in the struggle of debate itself. The affirmative is enslaved to values. You can vote negative to affirm the 1AC as an object reduced to its 1AC-ness. This solves the resentment DA. Self-affirming values produce the tyranny of the self. We must have allegiance to ourselves in the struggle. Your affirmation is a form of disciplinary decadence. You offer no point of contestation for illumination. You are a closure of disciplinary growth that causes disciplinary decadence. Gordon 8. When we treat our disciplines and their methods as absolute, we treat our disciplines in reality instead of approaching into its illumination. The result is a form of turning away from reality, from the notion of beyond. When our disciplines become the world, they become solipsistic and settled. The closure of disciplinary growth is the consequence of normative epistemological imperialism. All other disciplines become subtextual, subordinate text of normative scope of one discipline. The problem occurs internal to a discipline and practitioner subordinated to other disciplines. Disciplinary matters need to be thought as a manifestation of the will to power the modes of inquiry. An effective response is teleological suspensions of disciplinarity. This involves keeping inside the purpose of our reflections and an attunement to reality. This involves it is when philosophers do not worry about being recognized as philosophers, when they do not expect philosophy to be the answer to every problem. This has been a source of great inspiration and creativity. Where the theologians, the physicians, the mathematicians, the engineers, the women and men of letters could offer innovations and advance philosophy through an attempt to go beyond it. Such an attunement to reality, the price of philosophical theories are important to modern slavery and freedom. Consider this person who talks about him or herself all the time. Little room for others to get a word, and after a while it becomes evident that the person is afraid of what others think of him or her. Got the card there. And they aren't going to get affirmed here. This isn't completely illogical. Ultimately, debate is set by the norms which come from every round. Saying that other rounds are going to solve this means that those norms no longer have value. The Rainmaker evidence is very clear that norms need to have value. Norms need to be enforced. And this is a perfect example of the way that needs to happen in this round. And other rounds don't solve. If you let them get away with this round, then other teams are going to start doing things where they don't actually affirm the resolution. That means that all of the
that voting for him causes spillover to other rounds where other teams are going to be doing the same kinds of actions that they're taking in this round. Then they say that there's no T version, but there is a T version. All they have to do is read the 1AC, but also discuss how disability operates in the military presence in any of the topic areas. We're not saying they can't read anything that they're reading, it's just that they need to read a little bit more. It's also possible to affirm your identity within the topic, even if the topic's bad. Rashad Evans 12. The fundamental purpose of my argument is that we're approach talking by everybody, not just black peers, but produce the most inclusive and effective debates and policies. I do not believe in federal control in Indian country, but I believe the USFG will require that states earmark funds for renewable energy projects in the Indian country. I believe the USFG should provide legal protection in Indian country for cultural propagation. Dr. Shanara Reed Brinkley highlighted the value of seeing positive vision in the resolution. The two above examples of affirmative regret are consistent with all my moral convictions. Conservative topic selection is not a reason to go rogue. And on the education debate. We control the internal link to creativity. That means that we're going to be winning here as well, because the only way to create creativity is to have boundaries, to have rules that force us to act within those rules and innovate within that. That's key linked to all of the education internals. Unless they can produce creative thought, there's no reason that you're going to be creating education. The rules of debate force advocacies to get smaller and more creative. Get rid of those rules, get rid of the standards of debate, and advocacies are simply just going to try and be only unpredictable, which makes it hard to negate what produces terrible forms of education. And go to the fairness. They don't have an impact for why establishing artificial limits that produce better competitive equity is bad. It's a sentencing question. It's a sequencing question. Effective political and ethical decision making is impossible without first establishing a community to test its merits on an equal competitive field. A disregard community results in solipsistic persuasion and moralistic attitude that destroys the wholeness of debate. It is only through switch-side debate and debating both sides of a question that we're capable of building up a friendship in debate, establishing relations across debate. The voter on here is aesthetics. They dropped this. They didn't even make a link term to this aesthetics argument. Even if you think that beauty is a really bad reason to vote, they still dropped it. Makes this a very easy ballot for us. When aesthetics has to come first above fairness and education.
Check prep. We had
838.
838 left.
Okay. Which one do you want?
Okay.
You want me to do the K or you want to do the K?
The first one. I just like, what do I need to do?
Okay. Other than answering stuff, right? What I have is shut up, get out. That's like basically like they're saying you talk about desensitiveness and blackness, so they're like use all the time. I'm not talking about any blackness. All I'm trying to speak for others. Yeah, I have something else to talk about. Yeah, basically scholarship. That's fine. Don't accept the colonial mindset, but they also aren't always shit. You can't accept the colonial mindset because the black body is always shifting, but the identity is always shifting, and that's not ontology. Like, that's not ontological. I mean, that takes out like all of the circuits it's predicated on blackness being ontological. Also, this is the alt. This is why we get money, because we are doing dreams on duty. However, laws and boards all the same. Also, yeah. So do you want me to also drop the 2 birds? Yeah. Do you want me to do that? Yeah. Okay. I got you. Okay, go. Also, they dropped it. Go hard on that. I'm leaving you. Are you almost done?
This is what we have left.
Alright, are you ready? Alright, stop prep.
2:35.
I have 2:45. Yeah. Yeah, because you started at 2:30.
2:35, once at 2:45.
I started a few seconds early.
That's fine.
Right.
2:40. All right. 2:40.
I mean,
I don't
You're
care if they
welcome
have
to
245.
Split the difference.
This is kind of funny.
245.
I think it's funny that right.
All right. So the order is going to be.
oh,
case,
let me save this for you.
Okay. Case, then off, then framework.
Alright, I'm gonna email this one card to you.
I thought she was doing the card.
I'm just gonna put it in the body of the document.
That's fine.
Or I mean of the email. Literally.
So case criticism.
Correct.
Where's my K flow? Oh, it's over there.
I think this thing is just. I don't need that, right? I don't need that, right?
Need what?
That's for them, right?
Yeah, because I saved the document for you in there.
In the Dropbox.
Yeah.
Right, so, is it what AR enter?
No, it's
After.
yeah, it's framework. Okay.
Just close enough. All right. Open the right document. Okay, this is just easy. Here, do you want to have that? Just do this.
Here.
Oh, actually, should be okay. Whatever. Let's just be careful with it. Okay. Email up. One's good.
I got it.
Do the double view. Ready? All right.
Alright, let's go.
First on case, when diversity affirming all disabilities, accepting the positive and negative realities of spoon, rejecting the contemporary idea of the status quo, affirming disabilities, only survival strategy, police debate, or gauge redefines the way spoon systems, spoon abilities, scratch, good, bad, spoony dichotomy, third reject the debation notion that good spoony set alley by race and suffering is part of the rounds that occurs via educate, or bad spoonies speak out against the status quo, rule the balance and endorsement of the rounds, discourse of the judgment of the team, the best challenge is able morativity in debate. We will not move out of the way any longer. Also, vote after because out around education, the act of bringing the education in the round, and educates all parties, including myself, for Friday night. I know what Spoonville was. Now that anyone else, I am aware that I'm trying to promoting the education debate, and the judge should endorse it.
They also ignored it and haven't put anything.
They
on
still
the
have not
post.
done anything on case. We even read an argument in the last.
That's a link. They ignored this link entirely. This is why they're violent and exclusionary to the disabled body.
Absolutely nothing on case, even after we make that point. Moving on to K. First, I looked at the case at all. Omission is not a link. This will apply to every single case. Any affluence will into a specific side of class where the affirmative advocacy harms the negatives, otherwise presumption flows at. They said that they don't want to speak for others, so instead they use scholarship-based rhetoric within the Wilderson shell. However, that's either one of two things. Either first, they are intentionally excluding the disabled, all the disabled scholarship that is present, such as what we presented in the 1AC, or they are intentionally lying by saying that, and they just don't want to classify our scholarship as scholarship in itself as one of the two things. It's either a double bind, in which they're either again lying or they're actually not classifying ours as scholarship, which is the further link and further violence done in the round. They are not speaking for others by using the scholarship, nor we. And that's the reason why we prefer the affirmative. They're arguing that we should address the racialized disabled bodies with double bind because doing so will be extra confusing white privilege by freaking for others again because if we're going to use their same logic, the refusal for not speaking for others is linked to the case. Further presentation of the case focuses on we demand on focusing on U.S. land, while the topic distinguishes 3 areas of the United States means another double bind. They dropped this through the block, which we already said is a double bind. They completely dropped. What are we supposed to defend? The topic here is the United States land. Our group card proves that the trying identity to land essentializes the body, recharges the balance that they are trying to solve. This is either offense on the K or terminal link D. The accuracy K. We reject the U.S. as ontologically bad, and we are redefining. They even say on the alternative, this is a wilderness intent card, for known dreams of an undoing, however implausible, of it for its own sake. That sounds a hell of a lot like the affirmative. There is no mechanism difference, there is no operating difference in the affirmative and the negative. Their card and their affirmative, which they can't describe what it looks like, says the exact thing we are doing.
Especially since we're already talking about blackened and black spoonies by talking about spoonies in Spoonville, which include all spoons, or all spoonies of all races. Yeah, go ahead.
On the perms. So the only perm that they answered was perm do both. They said perms, but the perms are very distinct. First, the perm do we do us and you do you is a very important perm that they completely dropped. Since they have not cited anything but omission for links to the case, I've already said why omission is bad, then this perm stands. There's absolutely no articulation why we can't do ours and they can't do theirs. And since if there is no clash, we've already articulated, and this is the best perm. The second, perm do the apt and the alt. This avoids the sequencing and the scripting they said would be prevented because there is violence now in the status quo. So never read anything on case, so they conceded there is violence in the status quo against a disabled body, means that we have 100% chance of solving against the violence of on the disabled body, and there is no reason why we can't then end the world under their own under alternative. So this is another perm they dropped, and another reason why you get the ballot. And then for perm do both, this was answered very briefly. Again, the scripting gets out, and they don't challenge the way spoons are portrayed in the status quo, means there's no solvency to the affirmatives case, and there's a net benefit for the permanent. Again, with sequencing, we must end the act violence now, not doing anything, re-entrench the status quo violence against disabled bodies. The next forces a good spoonie bad to make the economy present the status quo, and they have not challenged the president, so it's a deficit to the alternative. Also, they've never explained mutual exclusivity at all. They use omission, and omission is not sufficient. We're already doing with the alternative. We disrupt the debate by performativity. This is the poem. This was the first speech. Perm to the app and the alt. And we already did the perm to the app. Ends balance this one disabled and solves negative. There's no answer to this. And again, perm to you. Look at the Wilson 10 cards. I've already said this is further proof for that. Ableist authorization, and this is the Seaver's card, which says ableist authorization enables other forms of tactics. This was unanswered in the block. It's a huge drop. Turns out ableism is the root cause of other forms of repression, including what they were trying to solve against ableism. Is the root cause. Even if the app fails,
you need to get to framework soon.
Ableism's arms.
You gotta get to framework soon.
These are all advocates of the firm, and then finally, the king does not say the pessimism. They read that social death is pessimism. Further linked to the violence of the status quo done on single bodies for the good bad free economy, whereas pessimism is a good foodie's place. This is a disadvocation alternative because this is the hooks card talking about we need optimism. We need optimism. Pessimism dooms. It forces everyone to be a good spoonie, and we don't have solvency. Framework. They said that we need to revise and resubmit the app. They have admitted that they are not disabled. This means that Taylor would have to submit her story narrative to be accepted in able normative structure before she can talk about this ableist and rooted in the idea that her performance is not being run. Starting point in terrible education. There are 3 authors in the one I see who aren't disabled. The app promotes terrible education. They call the group epistemology terrible education, which ableist and recreates destruction of violence. The app terms times Taylor's the bad 20 because she refutes to debate the topic. We provide the best education around. Extend Peter's education is an act of love and courage that love to promote self-discovery. This education is not neutral because it's a political process. One cannot teach thought only through our content because all decision-making and action derives from the language people use to describe somebody's education is from a student's worldview, which is political, also dialectical relationship, continuous development of reflection, basic visions of debate, beauty of national disabled, thoughts and exclusionary, students are the irrational, the other, the monster rational, will never make debate conventionally beautiful. This is why redefinition of the self is affirming discipline is key. They also say things like weakness. They said that we are weak. This is another further link to that. Another reason why we should reject the framework. Agonism assumes that I can never be on the ground as a thing. Taylor has a disability.
Get to that. Go to antagonism.
Okay, antagonism argument that I can never be on the same ground as a disability makes it incredibly hard, if not possible. Democratic agonism gives the rules of the way it cannot sustain negotiating disagreement. Agonism is a reason to loosen the grip from the framework of another division of the community, not a reason to tighten the others. It's hard being 12. There is a democratic a novel democracy when rules are not always open to question, disagreement, consensus, deliberation, negotiation, change over time, not to be forgotten, that falls in separate game, which the framework can come up for deliberation.
Okay, how much do we have left?
243. No, wait, 336. That was us. Sorry.
Okay.
Or yeah, 2, 3. Or 3. I'm bad at reading sometimes. I'm sorry. Oh, come back. Why? Start writing extensions to framework. Okay, which one are you more comfortable with? Okay.
Or I'm sorry, okay.
Yeah, start writing extensions now. Everything. Do you understand mechanism? Okay, good. It's okay. Oh. I can't believe I got 3 hours of sleep last night.
How many are you going to get tonight?
Oh, who knows? I don't know. Not that I have to debate tomorrow or anything. Aw, Bria. So cute. Oh, yeah, today's Easter, isn't it?
Yeah, I only realized this morning because there was a Snapchat looking for it.
Yes! Same!
Yeah.
Like,
Nice holidays for Snapchat.
Well, my dad texted me like a week ago and was like, "Hey, so who are you gonna have Easter dinner with?" Because I'm from Minnesota, so I couldn't like go home for it for sure. And I was like, "Well, I assume I'll be eating like probably Wendy's with my debate team."
yeah, true.
Good
Like,
vegan, some good vegan food.
I'll be at CEDA, so I have no idea. But my debate team, I guess.
Greg's mom and me.
Oh,
And I was
that's
like,
nice.
that's gonna be so good.
That would be good. Dang.
Greg's mom is adorable. I love her.
I completely believe that.
I just know a lot of weird things about her.
Okay, I'm gonna not think about that till now.
Yeah, you probably shouldn't, but
No.
it's an interesting thing to know about the world.
Sweet. Okay. So, I'm gonna go framework, case K. Yeah. Okay. Opponent ready? Revise and resubmit is not a reason why you don't get to talk about this. You do. We're not saying that you have to resubmit it to us that we as able bodies are going to be able to approve or disapprove of it. What we are saying is that simply in order to create some sort of clash, in order to do this sort of an idea of debate in which we are able to actually clash and firms would work, there would be a necessity of like having a topic area mentioned in your 1EC. That is why what we're saying is like if your firms work on the K, that's a provement that you should have done this sort of you should have listened to our interpretation. Voters, aesthetics. There's no point to debate. All education can be gained from reading, so let's just make it beautiful. Our evidence clearly indicates that there's beautiful, that a beautiful struggle is the most beautiful thing. Obviously, what we're talking about here is not like a traditional standard of beauty, which they talk about how like disabled bodies can't fit into that. That's not what we're talking about. We're not talking about like Aphrodite as the traditional like white female with blonde hair and blue eyes. That's not what aesthetics is about. That's not what about the struggle of debate is about. They clearly misunderstood this.
I think it's beautiful when someone who's very depressed gets out of bed every morning. Just by doing the things already.
So roll of the ballot is that version of the struggle. That means you vote next, vote after. This was never addressed in the 1AR. It's a reason to vote. It's an easy reason to vote for us. Our interpretation is even if there isn't anything wrong with it, we want you to change a couple of things to fit into the rules of this forum and resubmit it. 2 DAs to your intern. 1. Resentimiento. Rainmakers is a framework says the framework is key to freedom, produces creativity, internal link to your arguments. The Stratococcus is a dialectic of the other. 2. Purposelessness DA. Affirming the act of the neck ballot is absurdity. The death of the 1AC in the neck ballot is a tragedy that makes the play meaningful because it forces us to relinquish dreams of a perfectly coherent model of debate that's fair to find value in the struggle of debate itself. Act is enslaved to values, and you can vote negative to affirm the 1AC as an object reduced to its 1AC-ness. This also resentimiento. The self-affirming values produce tyranny of the self. Must have allegiance to ourselves in the struggle. Lane 96, the struggle is beautiful, and Gordon 99, our disciplinary decadence. Alt equals no telos. The T version of the app solves all of your offense. The fairness and education focus are ascribing a telos to debate, and that's bad. Well, the only voter here is aesthetics. And on case, they say that they extended their role of the ballot, but they never acknowledged our role of the ballot on case, which I will extend over there. But they say our role of the ballot was that there should be the best theory of power relations. Their role of the ballot says that it should be whoever has the best method of challenging able normalism in debate. With those two things, as competing role of the ballots that were never answered with each other, your best role of the ballot is to go for the one on framework. But the best, they say that there's out-round education based on this, but I don't know how they're going to affect that, how they can prove that they have out-round education. Then they say that there's no link on the case means it's violent and exclusionary. What, not doing case turns and telling you to shut up is violent? That would be a terrible idea. Us going on case and saying like, no, you're wrong, no, you shouldn't talk about this would have been violent. We engaged you through the K. Moving on to the K, speaking of which. So, first of all, they say omission is not a link, but we're not a link of omission. We're colonialism and a sequencing links. They have been directly ignoring this all around. They have been ignoring these links, but you can extend them here. The scholarship, they say that our scholarship is speaking for we're speaking for Black people because we're using scholarship, and we could have spoken for disabled people by using scholarship. Yeah, but what we're saying is that what we can do with the alt is a better use of the debate space to challenge greater forms of overarching power structures, right? They say that there's also homogenization DA when they say that they talked about Black people because talking about all spoonies is talking about Black spoonies. That's a homogenization DA because they're basically saying they're grouping everyone together and saying that there's no difference in the struggle between these. So then they say that focus on land and areas, focus on the land in this is a double bind with the focus on areas. However, first of all, we're not saying that you have to talk about America specifically. What we're saying is that you have to forefront the fact that colonialism is an existent thing, which is certainly something that you can do by talking about topic areas. I know because we do it on the app. So this is definitely something that you can engage with. They also say that there's no mechanism difference and that they talk about this, but you can also group this with how they say that ableism is the root cause because they completely ignored our ontology first claims. They have not responded to this. They have not clarified how ableism links to this this ontology argument. They haven't dealt with any of our ontology or epistemology issues that were brought up in the 2NC, and those drops are going to be huge in this round. They say that they talk. I've already talked about that, and then on to the firms. First of all, the perm you do you, we do us thing is irrelevant because we're actually be able to solve for the app. In the world in which the neg solves better for the app than the app does, because it's the reorientation towards the end of the world solves not only this ableist structure of debate, but also the anti-red and anti-black structures of the world at large. You're not going to be able to vote for, like, why would you vote for one smaller part that doesn't actually solve as much as the alt can solve? Then they say that violence in the status quo means that they solve and then they can do the alt. But, like, you're not going to be able to, like, if you keep deferring the alt to next round, the alt will never get solved. Perms of this type simply defer this sort of like way of thinking onto another place, onto another time. We're never actually going to have this reorientation because it keeps getting put to the side. And in a world in which this is the only ethical demand that can actually solve like almost every single type of oppression, this is the only ethical demand that we can be making that shouldn't be sidelined anymore because it's going to actually be able to confront all of these issues like on their separate planes, right? Right, and this, first of all, the sequencing DA, I already answered this and they didn't respond to my response to it, but the sequencing DA, like this doesn't apply to us because we're a reorientation, and we're not saying that they can't talk about this, we're saying that we talk, like, our reorientation would solve this better. They say that we're a scripting DA, the scripting DA, because they have, like, we're not talking about their scripting, but we're allowing them to discuss it in the same way, but, like, the reorientation would create a better space for them to do that, and the same thing with the batch screening. Yeah.
I got 2 for you. We'll start now.
Wait, hold on.
So I have a cake.
Okay, perfect.
It's kind of long. It's like 2 minutes.
Answer what they just said. That's more important.
Okay.
Yes. All right. We're about to see something great.
All cool.
Yep.
You got it.
Framework case K. Keep working on it. Understand?
Yeah.
Watch my time.
Sorry, so framework case.
Yes. No. Case framework K. Sorry. Where is it? All right. Everybody ready? Here we go. The F's methodology is challenging negative scripting on Spoonie's able normativity, the good-bad Spoonie dichotomy, and the traditional debate. Extend this is a moment of pause from debate. The 180s interruption, smothering, and quieting a debate. People are too afraid to critique the debate and protest against the topic of the violence because they are afraid of losing. Extend on to the 180s an act of intellectual courage. The good audience must both understand the speaker's words and what they mean by their words. Emphasize violence and refusal of the audience to ignorance that harms another person. This isn't an acquire attention. Quieting is when the audience doesn't identify the speakers, and nowhere smothering is when the speaker doesn't speak because they believe the audience will understand or believe their words. This is why framework links to the app is because, well, first of all, it does not engage, and second of all, because it is trying to quiet me by saying you need to resubmit and revise before we will even debate you on this. You do not link, and so you are not providing the best education because you are not saying the right things. You are not saying enough. This is quieting by saying that my voice does not belong here so long as I do not follow the rules, but cross-apply the poem. I refuse to play. Cross-apply both schools. I refuse to move out of the way of framework. The app is not going to move out of the way because we should not have to. This is a place for us to have this is for us to challenge debate and the violences that happen within debate, which I will explain how they recreate the same ableist structures and violences within this debate space on framework. Sorry. Our role of the ballot is the best in this round because the role of the judges are too vague, and also our role of the ballot said because of Cybers and also because of Race 14 and Peters and Thompson Cook that talking about disability discourse has to come first. We have to talk about how disability intertwines with every other topic in the debate, and also how disability discourse really and how we talk about disability as a prereq to doing anything and to challenge the USFG and anything else. So this is why we have to do the app first. Framework, I will not get out of your way. Not today, not anymore. I refuse to submit. I refuse to let you revise my app. I do not want your freedom. I do not want your human. I am always viewed as purposeless. Your model is bad because rationality, beauty, and witness are all rooted in able normativity, where the abled are the beautiful, the rational, the strong. My formal education can never meet your framework. Your framework violates the role of the ballot by perpetuating the violences in debate. This is why we have to redefine the self and affirm disability as being both positive and negative. Your inspirational poor bullshit with we think it's so beautiful when somebody with depression gets out of bed. That's inspirational porn bullshit, and that recreates that same kind of violence because whenever I come around because I have ADHD or because I have depression or because I have anxiety and I get to come up here and deal with all this bullshit, it's inspiring to you and helps you do better, and I become an object. I am not a person. I am not any kind of thing other than, oh look, go you did something, I'm proud of you. The fuck? They also draw antagonism. Do not evaluate this in the round. And even if you want to, this says the Jews not to the Rick game of debate where I am always already behind. This is the fair. They have not proven that their ground is good ground. Our education outweighs. Also, fairness is a joke. They have not. Fairness arguments are a joke. They all happen all the time. Also, they double turn themselves with running framework in the K, and they have no articulation of how the T versus solve the L, and their interpretation of chicken and fish judge. This is why you cannot evaluate these two arguments together, and why this is a voter for the app on, which they never answered this double turn. Also, there is no T version of the app.
There's no T version of the app. Finish that statement.
There's no T version of the app because it does not solve for narrativity, it does not solve for redefining the self and the affirmative model of disability, which is the most important thing in a prereq, like I said, also on the K. The failure to establish a clear link throughout the debate means that presumption goes out. The role of the negative is to determine the desirability of affirmative, since there is little to no distinguishable difference between the advocacy. Since the negative has not proven the manner in which we instruct their advocacy, there's no reason to vote negative as affirmation. We successfully proven that our advocacy is good because we win the written negative. The side negative has attempted to prove theirs is also good, but the test is connected to the affirmative desirability. The negative is not germane to the affirmative advocacy. This is also really important because all they've said is we did not center the debate on blackness and how anti-blackness affects and coloniality affects blackened bodies and the black body. But I can't. I'm white. That's racist and violent and exclusionary. I can't speak for others. They won't speak for others. I can't do it either. This is a link of omission, no matter how they try to spin it. Also, they said that they're not talking about how things are tied to land, so their second link is taken out. That's how they articulated it in the first place. They further the violence by saying that speaking for others is okay in the reading of ableism is not okay for them in the read ableism, whether or disability either mean that they are saying that ableism is not scholarship on the same playing field, or that they can reference the disabled body, meaning that they have facts exclusionary. All right, bring me the permit. We're already doing the all-we disrupt the debate by performance and they told me now benefits to the perk caused by a poem and Johnson parsing the interruption the key to fighting against the verb instruction permit the app and y'all no permit you do you we do what no establish app obstruction with all just submission means that you can do our app and they can do their neck at different times. We don't have to do them at the same time. They do not conflict. Look at Wilderness and Tech read it. We are undoing the whole context of the app is an undoing app solved by mechanism and neck and vote neck. Also, if you do not understand their alt, if you do not know what it's going to do to spoonies, if you do not know what it's going to do to blackened bodies, you cannot vote on it. Vague alt bad. They are not articulating it. Coming out of the 2NR, you can't vote on that shit because it makes no sense and you don't know what it does.
Good job. Hey, good job. Good job. Good job. Way to go.
Judge, do you need
Get your hat.
Yeah.
I mean, if I would take a while to figure it out.
Yeah. I just wanted to know when I start packing up.
That's what pissed off Taylor looks like.
Well, it's all. I think you go hard.
What?
I think you do hard.
I can. I mean, I didn't throw anything this time. One time I threw my water bottle across the room. That was fun. That was during Rage F.
What? Rage
F.
Oh. Really? Was it named that before the round, or was it named after the round?
That's what it was. It was Rage F.
I feel like that's the sort of thing you can name. Let's get the cards together.
I was gonna say, do y'all need our cards or can we grab?
Nope. We.
They're mine forever.
We're very thankful for your sharing. Shit. All over the place. Is this a card or a fluff? It's a fluff.
That's my question every day of my life.
Is this a card or a flush? There you go. Sorry, there.
Especially because we're out of flow paper right now, so I'm flowing on like printer paper.
Okay. We have some extra if you like.
Oh no, that's okay. We only have one more round, so.
Alright. We take out like credit cards and start writing on it.
Somebody had to flow on the back of like the tournament packet a couple rounds ago.
Oh, so that's not that bad. I mean, once you get to writing on non-paper, then
Yeah.
you see some dude like writing on a stump or something. My roommate is firmly convinced that today is Jesus' birthday. Firmly convinced.
You know? Who knows? It could be. History
True.
will never know.
We're getting an argument right now. He's not right now. Is it okay if I step out for 2 minutes? Yeah. Let's use the bathroom. I'm trying to break up my breaks. Let's go to the bathroom. Out and right.
That way and normally too.
I warned him that I was gonna get pissed.
No, you're right. And for the record, like I think what your app is doing is really important. And
No, I know. I don't take it personally.
yeah. Sorry about that.
No, you're good. Wait, what?
What?
What'd you say? Sorry about.
Sorry about Jordan. About like the comment about like I think it's really inspirational.
Oh yeah. No, like that's just like really inspirational porn bullshit. It's like
No, I
definitely
get it. No, I know.
really bad.
When you said that, I was like, all right, well, I'm not repeating that, but all right.
Yeah.
You said that. That's you. I know.
I got you. Yeah. It was just a lot of things. Just like set me off. Frameworks one of them.
Yeah.
You're not people that the watch.
I am reorganizing though, but thank you so much. Yeah, I fucking hate framework too. Jordan really loves it, and this is our last night round of the year because there's no way we're breaking. So I love running it. I fucking hate it. Every time someone runs us on us, I'm like, this is complete bullshit, and I hate it every single time.
Yeah, I get mad, so I write like huge. It's really fun.
I have this problem where I like try to write my speeches alongside my flows, and then I run out of flow space. Do you do that? I get that. Yeah, that same thing where you like start circling things, and you're like, that's my speech, now where do I flow? Somebody was like, just use other paper, and I'm like, it's not that easy.
Then you lose it.
Yeah, where does it go?
One
How do I
time.
reorganize?
Oh my god. I have to show you this. Have you ever accidentally flowed? So do you run a K app?
Yeah.
Have you ever accidentally flowed a K next to your K?
Yeah. Oh yeah, all the time.
Oh my god. No. Girl.
I started flowing something else okay because they ran something similar to one of our necks. I started flowing it as our arguments, and I started writing like responses, and then I was like, wait, no, okay.
I have to show you this. It was so fucking funny. Where is it? No, please tell me I have it. It's so funny. Is this it? Oh yeah.
I was gonna say no, but there's like some by 3.
This is what
Like
happened.
some by 3.
Somebody on my team owes me money.
So this is what I did. I just cut off the one AC and stuck and taped it.
That's hilarious. I ran out of space on one of my flows and just like took the other flow that had gotten kicked by them and just wrote end of the case flow and kept flowing.
How did this come on the laptop? Hillary Clinton's stocks and Marco Rubio's stocks.
That's called Facebook. That means you have shitty friends.
No, that means that Facebook advertises to me that it's all sponsored by it. So they're just poaching my interest.
That means you have really shitty interests.
I have interest in politics. I wouldn't say it's a shitty.
I'm messing with you. It's all good.
I'm messing with you by pretending to respond in comment.
No, you're not. You're not pretending. You're actually responding.
You don't want to see me actually responding.
But you are actually responding.
Nope,
it's just how much seriousness you put into it. So are you telling me that was all just a simulation? Are you gonna go for Will Morgan bullshit?
I don't know what that means, but yes.
Huh?
I'll just assume this.
No.
Not doing that.
No, what?
It's simulacra.
Yeah.
Oh
One of these days, I'm gonna make him
I've clearly
explain
not
it.
been doing this activity long enough. It's like 80%
Oh my
of what
god,
people
have
say.
you never hit like to lose or something? Oh, that's so cute.
Dude, we had Lacan last round, and it was these 2 white boys who were
Oh my
running
god.
on the Texas team.
Oh,
They
not
race
Texas.
While they talk about Lacan.
No.
This is the most white boy nonsense I've ever
Gee.
done. This is
I don't know. You should see some of our novices.
Oh my
Oh, no,
god.
I have.
No, my
Bless
favorite.
their hearts.
My-
I've seen them.
I just threw total shade at Will Morgan. He's gonna watch this later.
What'd you say?
Stop. I said Will Morgan bullshit, but that's like I always troll him by saying that. It's great.
Anything else you'd like to say for the record?
Yeah, he knows.
Would you like to say anything else for the record? Now's your chance.
Fuck you, man.
Not what I had in mind.
I'll talk to him later. It's all good. Oh my god, I want to take off these leggings, but they're underneath my shorts.
People are changing that.
Why didn't you ask? Go change them.
Because then I'm gonna go outside and get cold.
I mean, it's really warm out too, though. I guess probably by the end of next round it'll be cold again.
We'll see.
But if you're in this room again, you should change.
Yeah.
If I'm in this room again, I'm
I
changing.
mean, if you'd like, you can always wear wool pants because wool pants are very, very, very warm. And then you won't have to worry about being cold outside.
No.
But you're always going to be warm inside, always.
No.
Okay.
How red did I get?
You got very red.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell your face from your shirt at one point.
Really?
No, I'm just kidding. It's not that bad.
He just laughed.
That was an extra speaker point. No, I'm just kidding.
No, it wasn't. Also, it wasn't in Speak, so who cares?
I spoke it. So
I told you I get really upset.
I don't think that was really upset.
Oh no, just
I've made people much more upset.
no. It's a lot worse when you either say something extremely ableist, like somebody actually tried to justify to me that you could say the R word, and I was like,
They can say what?
the R word.
Oh my
I'm like, excuse me, what? I started like eye twitching. I couldn't deal with them. It was hilarious.
From the same team, who's the one?
TJ Collins. The one and only.
I was like, what's a swing team? Forgot.
We prefer to go by hybrid.
Whatever page 13 is. Okay.
Fuck that page.
We prefer to go by
Do we have it?
permutation.
Maybe, I don't know.
One of these days, is that 13?
Fuck.
No,
Yep.
that's okay.
I wrote on it.
That's okay.
Just underline the important part. It was right in front of me too. I forgot.
Don't.
You missing anything else? Or
She
is that
found it.
correct?
Oh no, that's it.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Puzzle piece.
Hey, she was down to like just say fuck that page. So like,
I-
don't feel that
This is
bad.
the last night round of the year for us. Like, we do not need this again.
This was the last nap?
Don't worry about it.
Exactly.
Okay, that's my last thing.
Oh my
Kind of looking perfect. I think that they win a couple of impact turns to T and win the permutation resolve was able to resolve most of the criticism. I'll start with the T stuff first. Well, actually, meta comment, I think you did yourself a massive disservice for going for both in the 2 and R. It spread you so thin that you were shouting all of the places you needed to win, and it was ultimately pretty damning for you. So, on T proper, I think that they have a couple impact turns. One is sort of to this question of, like, what is even aesthetics in the first place, and how does this really fit into that? Okay, so, back up. Your impact framing on T was, like, sort of hard to even parse out. Like, you have, like, brief tagline extensions of there being a horizontal on impact, like, flagging the main style of the pockets, and aesthetics matters because you're sending information. Like, those 4 sentences are, like, the entirety of there being impact framing. So it's, like, very sort of difficult for me to even, like, grapple with how should I understand impact, even if I'm, like, familiar with, like, Nietzsche. Right, it's like sort of hard for me not wanting to fill in for you, right? And what does that mean relative to the app? Especially when they have like a consistent argument carried through that is a question of like how students are understood relative to the academy and how like that sort of scholarship is constantly denigrated away, or you know, either not deemed beautiful because already a sort of position of crypt folks. Inspiration porn DA, sort of moving to 2AR, is like also sort of problematic. Not because I think it's like independent project the neg sort of art, even though I think you could have debated that and just be like aggression and debates all that matters.
Oh, I didn't. Oh, I got.
Yours like that's fucked up, but I was like waiting for like the.
Oh yeah, I just got pissed off and I forgot about the voter.
Yeah, so
I forgot that it was debate.
But I think, at least for me, I understood that as sort of an example of how the conception of aesthetics is understood by why the struggle presented by an actual intern would always be one that's like sort of tainted by anti-crypt conception. I actually stopped for a moment because I think that you do have a trick that's not very clearly answered, which is like sort of this floating nick of like you could affirm the act on the neg anyway because like shit's vacuous, right? And purposeless. But I think that there's a couple problems here. One is sort of like because you don't go to the case page, there's like a really important argument consistently every time on the case page that the value of crypt epistemology is a question of reclaiming value in the midst of everything. So if the point is that we should find value just like in the vector sense, i.e. Sisyphus trying to push a boulder up a rock, right? Sorry, a boulder up a mountain, right? The gap is sort of that, like we were claiming value in spite of that, or at the very least there's no like moment in which you compare the two of those things. And they say like, here's why the impact of T is fundamentally different from like that sort of reclamation, right? And when I don't know what the impact of Resentment is outside of just being named, I'm sort of like, well, they either linked or that, or they at least shown that the conception of aesthetics presented is bad. So, K proper, I think you sort of left the meat of the K in the block, which is sort of problematic for you. Like, so for example, I think that you left all the theoretical explanation about why anti-blackness and colonial ontological structures and why
either start the middle passage or genocide, right? So like there are moments where like you're correct in flagging arms are dropped. You're like they've conceded sequencing and ontology comes first, and I'm like waiting for the because, and that doesn't come, right? And so that's sort of problematic because like or even like the original claim of like you were on stolen land, you've not come to grips with that, right? So then you had a persuasive link argument, which is like you can reclaim this space, but that begs the question: is the space ethical, right? And like sort of like modern Atara's original argument. That's like sort of lost by the end of the debate. I think puts you on a sort of a bad spot. So like you've named the colonialism link argument, but what is it? What about the AF is colonial, right? Especially when I don't think you have an on-point answer to this Siebers card, which is just like disability is like a master trope disqualification. It's used for a bunch of things, and there are good cases of that from the AF literature, right? Like that's sort of a chain of equivalence, right? You like read some sexy cards that sort of make this argument, but there's not a there's no ink for me for like, so I'm not willing to intervene and do the work for you sort of on that question. And like the really only when you get to the permutation, you sort of a weird moment where you're like, why would you do the permutation if we solve more things because anti-black is a larger structure? Like, I think you all can win that like anti-blackness isn't that bigger, but solving better is not a disadvantage of permutation. That's not a reason why doing both is bad, right? Like even if you solve more, you still have to win that the combination of accuracies is bad, right? It's unclear why inclusion of epistemology is anti-black. I ended up like not having to parse through the like speaking for others debate, which was incredibly strange for both sides about like how this works in terms of like should we like talk about these things or not and what's our positionality. And not gonna lie, having like hardcore debates between like 4 not black people about Afro-pessimism is like strange, just like adjudicating, not gonna lie.
As it should be.
Wait, what?
I just said like having a debate between like 4 not black people and a not black judge about Afro-pessimism is like sort of strange adjudicating period. So, maybe they're correct that there was a reason that it's possible to talk about disability without it being speaking for others, without being recognition. And there are really good cards about anti-blackness and disability and body flesh distinction and how do we mark certain bodies as deviant in terms of ability and like reproduction and whatnot. So that literature exists. So I'm like sympathetic to the thing you could have said, but I don't punish you for it. I'm not like the fact that you fail to speak for others is like. Proves an utter disregard for doing things. I think the problems are just like not real super clear impact health, right? Like how does it interact? What's a clear gauge of the permutation, right? Especially when there's also kind of question like the alt sort of gets lost by the end of the debate, which also sort of puts in a weird spot for like definitively proving competition or proving a link card that means that like they can't possibly permute the two things. Because it's just like being in opposition and reorienting oneself away from the way that civil society is structured and contains, colonial anti-black legacies and whatnot. The AF is like civil society is also fucked. We're in the opposite direction.
Yeah. And
you don't really like get to the point of saying like they are humanist politics. What about the AF is anti-black is sort of unclear by the end of the debate. Not that you can't make link art, just like in this particular 2NR, the best link art got lost. And I think that like if you had like just not gone for T at all, right? Especially since that also wouldn't have invited the inspiration for comment. Just like not gone for T and just like sat on like non-node cores and like one of the 6 link cards. You actually are in a good spot.
So you think we should have gone for the K?
Yes.
Okay.
Like, you sort of went for both. I think you should entirely gone for the criticism.
As soon as I said, as soon as I was like getting up to speak, I was like, wait, what am I doing? But it was too late at that point. So,
yeah. Like, I tell my debaters you can't go to the buffet. You can't have a little bit of everything.
Yeah, I know.
I think that going for like 1 or 2 link art on the criticism, right?
Yeah.
Or something that would help you earlier is better no permutation theory arts. Like more reasons why like permutations are bad in KVK debates. Why philosophical competition should get better standards than functional competition because it obviates the ability for people to like actively become responsible for their scholarship. It denies nuance. It forces debates into polemics, like stuff like that. That's just don't get a perm, right? Because like otherwise it's sort of a weird spot for you all, right? So I think that would have helped you all quite a bit.
Okay.
But yeah, at the moment, sort of like even if you have a flagged sequencing DA, I don't know what the theoretical basis is for it. Like I know like the literature basis, which is like if it's an ontological distinction, you should prioritize over conflictual distinctions. You earlier say that disability is a conflict, not antagonism, right? But that's sort of like heavy work is lost by that. So I'm sort of just like left in a weird spot, and I think that like there's like somewhat of a risk that permutation solves, even if I don't think it's like the best explained. Like still no clear DA to it, which is why I only voted affirmative. Questions? Yeah.
Do you think if I had gone hard, because those are like theory things that I know,
Yeah,
because
sure.
I do them in other rounds.
Yeah, sure.
Do you think if I had gone hard on that side, we would have been successful, or do you think that this was just like a bad strat for this?
No, I don't think it's a bad strategy, right? I think that, well, there's like a sort of specificity problem from the get-go, right? I mean, like, because having cards about disability is like the gold standard, right? If you don't have that, then there needs to be more application to the way they talk about things, right? So, like, there's like, yes, obviously the debate, there is violence in debate, right? There is in fact an exclusion of students, right? But then the question is our response to reclaim it? Because that just seems like wanting to shift, or like the wording part to read at the top is like, you know, these are all things that are dramas that take place on the stage of anti-blackness, right? Which is like shift things around, like using your language and their language and making specific link arts will get you a lot farther. So it's like you didn't decide you read that ad, right? And the moment of the divorce card is good, right? But I think it's just like sort of sat on like the stolen land link art and like that link art. Then it'd be like, yes, there's value in your project. That sort of begs the question of like, should it be engaged and is it ethical because it comes at the expense of, right? Yeah, so like that part of the strategy is fine. Sort of weird thing for this T art, I feel like you should have an actual term. So I think like you should actually say like, you accept you should.
Okay.
Just be like, these are norms that have been established. No shit, this is arbitrary.
Oh,
because
man.
green term is like super fluky, so they
dropped
just be like,
my
we are interrupt the resolution. Like,
Yeah, which is
That's
why
what
I
pissed
think
me
if
off.
it hadn't in CX been
That's what
we
made me
hate the
mad.
resolution, I would have.
Right, but even that's a stance on the resolution, and like your phrasing of it's super weird.
Okay, yeah.
I think you'd be like, you have to be a normative
What the
defense
fuck are you
of the
doing?
resolution or something, right? And then define what that means, right? And define like should as policy action, reduction as whatever, military presence as whatever.
Okay.
Then you can say, here's clearly where they deviate. Right? This is arbitrary, but it's at least a stasis point, and that's good for agonistic competition, as well as like the Nietzsche freedom arcs that you're already making. Like you're making yourself.
Okay.
Also, I did not get the South Cox art at all. Like,
I didn't either.
Like even
I didn't
No
get
one
it
knew
either.
what was going on.
I didn't get it either.
yeah, I was like,
Wait, what was it?
Like, Wikipedia is about the relationship between
What the fuck is that?
The TR, and it was like, no,
Yeah,
no,
okay,
no, no.
So that probably could have been cut.
This is
Eh.
I don't think this card is good. Okay, I get
Yeah, or at the very least, it's sort of like even if there's spin, I didn't catch the spin for like.
Makes sense.
Other than infuriated, how was the 2AR?
Say lit.
Lit?
It was lit.
I noticed myself actually spitting. I was really upset.
I noticed you spinning as well.
I was pissed.
I feel like there was like good offense that happened for a very big run across. I don't know.
Probably. That tends to happen when I get angry. I know I probably should have also said, like, oh, when traditional norms are established. I wrote that on my flow as, like, that would have been a link to anti-blackness, because, like, whiteness and able normativity are norms, so we should just maintain them.
So I will say that I'm sympathetic to the argument. I didn't end up having to evaluate it because I thought there was a rationale outside of it. But these things are double turns art.
Yeah.
There needs to be an impact to it. Right now it's a link
yeah.
without an impact. Like, yes, in fact, they were double turns. So,
Oh, did I not make a bad for education thing?
it was not super clear.
I didn't either.
God damn it.
In the
Alright.
1AR.
Well, you're just like it makes us debate both sides. And it's like that's a factual statement.
It's like, yes, it does.
Right. I mean, like
Look, right?
even if like you are now no longer unflinching in your relationship to the end of the all, which means that your reading framework and all solves and take out.
Yeah.
Could be an art, right?
I
Or
know.
reasons why
I've never had to, like, do this in the 2AR. Well, I haven't had to do this in, like, forever. Because you usually, like, go for framework and their K.
Well, to be fair, I'm saying that the contradictions matter argument should have been.
Yeah.
Like I think that the 2AC can be like this is an all solves and take out because of the way the contradictions function.
Oh, okay. Should I have just put it before? Like, should it just have been, like, one of the first things? Because I put it at the bottom of framework.
Yeah, there wasn't an impact to it then.
I know. Oh, you're saying the impact. Oh.
When you make that argument,
Got
you then make the all solves and take out.
Yeah. I was gonna read the card, which probably would have had an impact in it, but, like, I was running out of time.
Yeah, it sort of just became like, yes, there are contradictions.
Yeah. How, and then also, sorry, no, was there anything else?
No, that's it.
Okay, was me getting really mad, like, bad for speaks?
No.
Okay. And then, for the 2AC, do you think that the time allocation on framework in the K was about decent, or?
Yeah, I always thought you were fine. I think that the 2AC framework I think needs to be tailored a little more.
Yeah, I
It's
just
sort of just like fair is paying for bullshit. It's like yes,
Stop.
That's not their art.
I know.
So that actually matters for time allocation. That you could have.
Yeah, I know. I just like I didn't really get it at all, so I was like, let's just put some stuff on there. They'll probably explain it, and then I'll be able to have him like extend them and make it more tailored later, which is a bad form of like that's a bad way to answer it. But I mean, like,
You're not wrong.
yeah, but I mean, like, you know, it. I feel like if I don't know anything else, it's a good like at least something on the flow. So
Yeah, I mean,
I just did not understand what it was.
so in that situation for future based two things,
Sure.
one of them is spend quite a bit of cross-ex time on it.
Mm.
So like obviously you don't like the intro creates whatever. So you sort of be like, what's the impact to aesthetics? Like what is freedom for each right?
Okay.
And then that gives you clear what's the impact.
Right. Okay.
And then just like mental note as you're going through the 2AC, if it's not relevant, don't waste your breath.
What?
Like as you're going through the 2AC, if you like realize it's not relevant, just don't waste your breath. Just move on.
Yeah, I did that a couple times with the policy arguments. I was like, wait, they're not telling me to be policy oriented. I'm not gonna read this. I know I read one card that was like that, but I realized it halfway through, so I think I marked it and moved on, or maybe I didn't. I don't remember, but
Yeah, I think there was like one. For card or maybe it's a card.
no, Clifford was saying that like deliberation and ground are inherently ableist.
Yeah. So you definitely like taught yourself a couple places, but do some
Right.
some ones you want to do that.
Yeah, sure.
No scissors.
Why do you need scissors?
Answer the
Why do you need scissors?
Wait,
I'll answer the question.
No. Oh, there's an RFD. Stop it. Be respectful. Army. Huh?
She's not
What?
speaking.
What?
Oh, it is.
I have scissors. Yes. Why do you want scissors?
So I can cut my poems out.
Jesus Christ. Later.
Wait, I have to make. So,
That was intense. Aubrey, I got more angry than when I ran Rage F. Oh, I'll show you. I have it recorded. Aw, cute. You have to add me so you can tag me.
No, this is just in our group chat.
Well, you know what?
You don't want to be.
Do I have what? Yeah.
No, you do not want to be in this group chat.
Did you ever get your phone charger from the person or whatever? Okay.
That's actually a pretty good picture.
It is. It's cute.
I'm usually just like not looking at the camera.
When I went back to the hotel room, I plugged it in.